My name is Diane Proctor, and I'd like to welcome you all to our evening for a discussion about the welcoming and the resettling of Afghan refugees. It is a privilege to have so many people here. Over 70 people signed up to join us tonight, and I think the people will be gradually coming into the feed and joining us. I'm on the board of the League of Women Voters, and I serve as chair of the town's of the League's Town Government Committee. But before we begin, I want to thank the committee that has put all of this together this evening. The chair of the League's Immigration Committee is Nancy Cronin, and Nancy has chaired this operation. And Nancy, thank you so much. Nancy Brown is the chair of the DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the League, and she is presently in California, but her husband Bob is with us, and we send our love to Nancy and our thanks for all that she's done. Stefan Bader has also served on that committee. He's also on the board of the League of Women Voters, and Ingrid Detweiler. Behind the scenes, I also want to say thank you to the people who are managing this Zoom, Julie Rowing, Court Booth, and Peggy Wargelin. Frankly, without them, we would all be lost. They're the wizards, behind the wall. The United States is going to resettle about 50,000 Afghan refugees or evacuees in the next year, with around 500 people coming to Massachusetts and New Hampshire. The Evacuee Resettlement is being coordinated through designated social service agencies. One of those agencies, and a very important one, is the International Institute of New England, known as IINE. IINE has been active in terms of resettling and welcoming people to our shores since 1919, May of 1919, actually. And it is a nonprofit organization which has obviously a very long history in assisting immigrants to our country. This is an opportunity to learn how the resettlement effort is organized and ways in which volunteers can help short and long-term tasks. Our keynote address tonight will be by Cynthia Hellman, and you can see her in the screen right below me. Hi, Cynthia. She's going to give the keynote address, and she's going to be followed by Sue Biskin, who is a Concord leader in working with ways to support the evacuees. Some advice about how to manage this call. Most of you are muted tonight until there's a time for question and answers. You will notice at the bottom of your screen something called reactions, at least depending on what screen you're using. But if you're on a computer, you will see something called reactions. Under reactions, if you push that little button, you'll see an opportunity to raise your hand. That will give you, if you raise your hand, an opportunity to be called on and ask questions in a personal way. If you prefer to ask your questions during the conversation as it proceeds, or just because that's your preferred style, you can write a question in the chat box. We will be monitoring the chat box, and we will alternate back and forth between people who've raised their hands and the chat box itself. Please allow me now then to introduce Cynthia. She is the manager of major giving at the International Institute of New England. She builds and strengthens individual and community relationships that support IINE's mission work to provide housing, education, and pathways to careers and citizenship for immigrants and refugees. Cynthia has been working for nonprofit organizations for 25 years in the service of those among us who are marginalized and vulnerable. On top of that, she has twin children, a daughter, son, age 11. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to share my screen. So thank you so much again for having me. I am so pleased to be here with you all. I'm very grateful for you all organizing this talk this evening. I was just telling some of the organizers earlier that, we work behind the scenes, and we don't often get an opportunity to meet the people in the community who care as much as we do about the plight of immigrants and refugees, especially during this time of COVID. So I am so grateful and happy to be sharing our work with you. And thank you so much for joining me this evening. So I'm going to move on. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the International Institute of New England and what our mission is. So the mission of IINE, as we call it, is to create opportunities for refugees and immigrants to succeed through resettlement, education, career advancement, and pathways to citizenship. That's our mission. And here's our theory of change. So it starts with resettling our refugees and immigrants. So we'll start with resettle. We welcome them. So I'll tell you a little story. A couple weeks ago, I went to the airport with my colleagues to welcome an Afghan family, and they had just narrowly escaped being assassinated by the Taliban at the airport. So when we meet them at the airport, we are prepared to welcome them and with the knowledge and understanding that there's a lot of trauma, obviously, not just the trauma of the violence of the war, but also the trauma of having to leave their country without ever knowing if and when they're ever going to go back. And of course, they've left many family and friends behind. So this family that we greeted at the airport was a mother and a father and their 4 children. The children ages ranged from probably like around 12 to about, I'd say 18 months. Beautiful, beautiful children. This first wave of evacuees from Afghanistan, these are folks who worked with the United States government. So they might have been interpreters, they might have had positions where they were involved in intelligence. So these are folks that the United States government had relationships with in various ways. So the husband, the man, he had been an interpreter for the United States military. So was fortunately able to speak some English. The rest of the family did not, however. So when we greeted them, we're not able to speak to his wife and their children in their language, but we did have on site with us one of our employees who spoke their language, which is Pashto. And also with us at the airport was a man in Cambridge who is a landlord. And this is a man who we've had a relationship with we've built this relationship over the years. And he has provided apartments for us and our refugee friends at a reduced rate. So we welcomed these family at the airport. We brought them some food, some water, and toys for the kids. And so we want to welcome them and to have someone on site there who can speak their language and also provide like culturally appropriate food, etc. So then what happened is we got their luggage, which was very, it was hardly anything, and we led them to the vehicle that took them to their apartment and got them ready for the evening. So that's the first thing we do. We greet them, we welcome them, and we take them to, it's either a temporary shelter. So we have a lot of people who volunteer their homes. If there's not an apartment ready, which there often is not, we have people who are willing to house our refugee and immigrant friends until we can find them a permanent home. In this case, we happen to have an apartment ready for them. So the landlord came and we took them to their home. So it's amazing how quickly this happens. So just within a matter of days, the children who are school-age children were actually enrolled in the Cambridge schools. And over the next several days and months, what we'll do with this family, in addition to enrolling the children, the school-age children in schools, is that we will work with the mom to enroll her in English language classes. And right now, those are all online because of COVID. We will also help them find places where they can find culturally appropriate food. You know, depending on where the refugees come from, they might need to learn basic things like how to use the toilet, how to use the stove. So there's a lot of education around just like basic life skills. We'll also connect them with social services that they might need. And we also provide them spending money. So that's part of what we do, is to provide our families with money so that they can spend it on mostly things like culturally appropriate food, basic, household items like toilet paper or paper towels. So just really the first several days and weeks are just kind of supplying our friends with the basics, and then connecting them with just the local services. Now this family, because the husband spoke English, he was able, it's just amazing to me, he was able to find a job within weeks of arriving. So he's actually working as a cook in an Afghan restaurant in Boston. And so, which is amazing. It's an incredibly, that was an incredibly quick process for him to find this work and to be able to start working. And then over the next several months, we'll continue to make sure that they're connected with the services that they need. This will also include the possibility of the mom receiving education and job training. So when IINE is an organization that contracts with the United States government. So about half of our funding comes from federal and state agencies that provide money through our tax dollars for immigrants. Unfortunately, the money that we receive from the United States government is only covers about 3 months of the resettlement needs. And so after that, we depend on donors, both donors who give monetary gifts, and also gifts in kind. So we have a warehouse where we receive things like furniture, household goods that we can supply our refugee friends with. And we depend on that. So after that 3 months, it's really all on us, which is why we just recently had a special Afghan emergency refugee campaign so that we could raise money to prepare to resettle the Afghan evacuees, in addition to the hundreds of other refugees that we receive from other families. So we move in from resettling to stabilizing. We help folks with employment. So we look for places of employment. We have lots of relationships with different industries and businesses in Boston, where we can connect the refugees with those places that can provide training and education for them to start and advance a career. And then as we move along, so we were in resettling and stabilizing, then we were moving on into the integration phase. So we also support civic engagement. We provide legal aid to our refugee friends and help them to achieve eventually in citizenship. And then after we work on integration, the outcome that we are striving for is self-sufficient refugees and immigrants able to fulfill their dreams and contribute to New England's growth and prosperity. So that's our theory of change, and that's basically the work that we do. All right, I'm going to move to the next slide here. And I'm going to admit someone who just wants to come in. Here we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about our refugee resettlement. We resettle in the greater Boston area, Lowell, and also New Hampshire. So I was just talking about that 90-day program, the 3-month program. And this is the federal agency that we partner with. It's called the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, otherwise known as USCRI. And so we work with them to secure and set up apartments. We greet clients at the airport. We administer cash assistance, provide intensive case management so we can connect our clients to services. And we support the client's transition. Let me just move this. Ooh, I'm going to go back. Oh, I guess I was already, it's okay to move forward on that. All right, so refugee resettlement, the 90-day reception and placement period is available to refugees, special immigrant visa holders, and humanitarian parolees, which is a very strange word, parolees, but that's the word that the government wants to use. We like to use refugees or evacuees. Our Afghan refugees actually fall under humanitarian parolees. It's a special emergency status. So as we all know, the Afghans were evacuated and it was an emergency situation. So they're considered parolees. We call them evacuees. And this is just some of the monetary information here. Each arrival gets a one-time federal payment of $1,225. And then we receive $1,050 per arrival. Now, as you can imagine, that's not a lot of money, especially in the Boston area, which is why we do our fundraising among our individuals and community groups and also corporations. So for a family of 4, this is a one-time payment of nearly $5,000 in communities where the average cost of a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,800 per month. Families need to pay the first month and last month's rent, as is standard with renting an apartment, to secure an apartment, in addition to just meeting basic needs. And we help them with that. We have, like I said before, relationships with landlords in the Boston area, Lowell, and in New Hampshire that are willing to gratefully rent apartments at a lower rate. And they also are willing to often reduce the security deposit. So there's never enough public funding for any arrival. So we supplement this with private donations and in-kind contributions. Let's go to the next slide here. So I'll talk specifically now about Afghan resettlement. So just a little bit about the history of our resettlement with Afghans. So we've resettled nearly 350 Afghans since 2014, mostly in Lowell. And the reason for that is that Lowell is less expensive than Boston. And Lowell also has a very vibrant and thriving immigrant community where there's already kind of an infrastructure of social services that are there for our refugees. Lowell has the largest community of Afghan refugees in the whole of New England. And Afghans resettled by our organization up until today have been both refugees and special immigrant visa holders. So now we are preparing to welcome at least 425 Afghan evacuees in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, probably more, like 500. And they're categorized by the United States government as Afghan humanitarian parolees, which is a temporary status. Let's go to the next slide. So this is what we're going to do. And this is a picture of the family that I was talking about that I met at the airport. Beautiful family, so sweet. Temporary to permanent housing. So if we don't have permanent housing available the evening, it's usually in the evening, that our friends from Afghanistan arrive, we have volunteers on hand. We have a whole volunteer network that is willing to house our Afghan friends until we can find a permanent housing for them. We provide case management services in Dari and Pashto. Those are the two main languages in Afghanistan. So that means we've had to hire people who speak those languages, and they provide case management services. Case management services include things like connecting our Afghan refugees with a legal team that can help them achieve the status that they need to reside here permanently. We provide food, clothing, and basic needs, household goods, toilet paper, paper towels. We also provide cash assistance. So the funding that we receive from the government, as well as our own funding, we provide in cash so that the family can go out and buy culturally appropriate food and household items. We help them enroll in healthcare and insurance, also school enrollment. These children, the school-age children, are already enrolled in school. It's amazing to me. We also provide English as a second language for the adults. So mom here doesn't speak any English. We've enrolled her in classes so that she can learn to speak English. And the kids, of course, will learn to speak English in school. And then we also provide cultural orientation. So what is the culture of the United States? What is it like to live here? How do people find jobs? How do people use public transportation? Like everything you can imagine that you would need to know to live in a completely different country and a completely different culture. So we offer, currently we're only offering virtually because of COVID, but when in normal times, we offer classes at all three of our sites. So we have a site in Boston, right downtown in Chinatown on Boylston Avenue. We have an office in Lowell and an office in Manchester, New Hampshire, where we offer classes in normal times on site, but right now is virtually. And one of the benefits actually of offering classes virtually is that we're able to reach out to folks who live outside of those three cities. That's been a real benefit. So here's some specialized support that we provide. And this is the first one is something that is very near and dear to our donors' hearts and is something that's great concern. We provide family reunification services. So we will help unaccompanied children and teenagers rejoin their families and provide them with trauma-informed social work, which is a huge part of what we do, because pretty much 100% of the people that we welcome into the country have experienced trauma. We provide legal support, and we provide assistance navigating local health systems to meet their mental health needs. We also provide youth mentorship. We pair 16 to 24-year-old refugees with community mentors who support their education and career goals. through one-on-one advice. We do financial literacy training. We help with college applications and career exploration. And we also provide support for victims of trafficking. We provide a range of services to foreign-born victims of human trafficking. Okay, so with our employment services, we help clients to develop their resumes. And this, oftentimes clients have never had to write a resume. They don't even know what a resume is, but it's necessary in the United States to have a resume when you apply for a job. So we introduce them to the concept of a resume and help them build their resume. We do practice interviews. We do orientation on US workplace norms. We help them search and apply for jobs. We help them with their orientation, help them solve problems on the job, and pursue career advancement. All right, with job skills training. So we train English language learners of many immigrant statutes for careers. And so these are the main careers that immigrants pursue: healthcare, hospitality, and building maintenance and construction. Hospitality is on hold, unfortunately, because of COVID. We also provide legal services. So we serve clients in Manchester, New Hampshire, Lowell, Massachusetts, and Boston, Massachusetts. We receive services from corporations that offset the cost of subsidized support for low-income refugees and immigrants. These services include green cards, citizenship, family reunification, and more. So since last year, March of last year, this is just a little bit of how we've continued to operate during COVID and what our COVID-19 response have been. We deliver food and PPE to clients who are ill and quarantined. So all the refugee clients that we serve, if they're ill or if they're in quarantine, we will provide them food and masks. We offer all of our services virtually. That includes everything from legal aid to English classes, to job skills training, to GED. Everything that we offered before on site, we offer virtually. We provide digital literacy skill building and laptops and tablet distribution. So those clients of ours that need laptops or tablets for developing their literacy or applying for jobs, we provide for them. And then we raise funds for rent, utilities, and other needs. In addition to the, how can I go back? How can I go back? Sorry about that. This is really important because it talks about our advocacy. I'm gonna go down, here we go. So in addition to the services that we provide, we also advocate for our refugees. We advocate for legislation that creates a safe and welcoming environment for refugees and immigrants. We're advocating currently for state funds. So right now we're receiving most of our funds from the federal government, very minimal state funds. Right now we're in the process of lobbying the state government to provide direct cash assistance for housing and funding for legal services to Afghan parolees arriving here in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. We're also advocating for the passage of federal legislation. So that's not just us. We have a coalition of organizations that we work with to advocate for the passage of federal legislation. It's called the Afghan Adjustment Act. It provides funding and expedited legal processing for individuals and families who have been evacuated from Afghanistan. Okay, this is the youngest child here of the family that I greeted at the airport, such a sweet little girl. So this is what we're calling on our individual supporters and our group supporters and our coalition members and our corporate donors to do. Several things. You can sign up for our newsletter. So if you want to get more involved, if you want to be more informed, you can go to iine.org/subscribe to our newsletter. You can volunteer. We need all kinds of volunteers. Volunteer opportunities include things like delivering furniture to an apartment or picking up furniture from someone who has it and taking it to the warehouse, or bringing household goods or like cleaning supplies. That might include hanging out with the kids while mom and dad receive some kind of services. So volunteer opportunities abound, and you can find them at iine.org/volunteer. You can also donate goods. We have a list of goods that we're always in need of. Those usually include things like formula, diapers, paper towels, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, bedding, things like brooms, mops, dustpans, also clothing. Winter is coming, so we're in need of winter clothes. And also, of course, our biggest need is through monetary funds. We've had to raise an additional nearly $2 million at IINE above our annual budget to provide for our Afghan refugees. And that's it. I just want to thank you so much for, first of all, taking your Wednesday night to attend this webinar, to listen to the story of the Afghan family that I met at the airport, and also to, our services and the other support that we provide. And it really is because of people like you that we're able to do this work. Without support from individuals and community organizations, faith groups, businesses, we wouldn't be able to do the work we do. And again, after 3 months, we don't receive any more funding from the United States government. So we really depend upon donation, monetary donations, as well as donations in kind.
Cynthia, thank you so much. And this has been so informative. And Eric, I see you've raised your hand, but we're going to hear from Susan Biskin first. And then Eric, you'll be the first to ask a question. I just want to say that you used a word, Cynthia, that was so touching. You talked about your friends that you're picking up. And that language is so it's so passionate and important. Thank you so much, because it means something so very different, doesn't it? Than just evacuee. It means somebody whose whole lifestyle we're going to embrace. Sue Biskin is now going to talk with us a little bit about the work that she and her organizations, or kind of a collaboration, has been doing. She's a leading voice in Concord. At Kerem Shalom, working with the UU Church in the Immigration Justice Task Force at First Parish. There are other communities of faith in our town which have been very active, and we really hope that you will turn to communities of faith. Whether you are a person of faith or not is not the issue, but turn to communities of faith, because that's where so much of the best organization is taking place right now. Sue, welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I've been working with immigrants all my professional life. I ran an ESL program for adults for many, many years. And when I retired, I actually went back into teaching, did some family therapy with young with parents and children. And then I volunteered at LexRap for about 3 years, working with an Iraqi family, actually helping them. They had been here a while. They had gone through the resettlement in Lowell, and they moved to Concord, and helping them with communicating with schools and with healthcare and all the things that are so hard to navigate. And when your literacy skills are really not strong, the reading and writing, it's quite a challenge. People get emails upon emails, and even when they're translated, there are many concepts that people just don't understand. So any help that people in the community can give to help understand what is life like here and how does it work. So when I heard about the Afghans coming into Massachusetts, I talked with people in my congregation at Kerem Shalom, and Nancy Brown, Bob's wife, connected us with First Parish, who has had an ongoing immigration committee for years. They worked in sanctuary, and they've done different things. And then we got together with also with Tricon, Ingrid's on this call, and Trinity, and we talked about how we were going to do it. And at the beginning, nobody knew where the people were coming from or how they were getting to us. And over the past month and a half, we've all learned about IINE and other agencies that are directing the evacuees to our community. And I understand between several organizations, there'll be over 1,000 individuals that will come into Massachusetts. And we are about to get matched with a family through IINE as a collaborative First Parish in Kerem Shalom. And we've decided that we can support 1 or 2 families, but this one's a large one. I think there are, I forget if there are 7 kids or 5 kids, and a family of 9, I think. So that will be interesting. We will have lots of people will volunteer for different things. I have also become a volunteer with Dignity and Asylum, which is a very small nonprofit in Concord. And they have placed a family through IINE. So I've started going in personally and meeting with this young family, and they don't speak English. It's an interesting challenge, but somebody is coming into them almost every day, to say, hello, how are you? We figured out certain things over translation, phone translations, and it'll take a while for them to get the children. These children are preschool age, so that'll take longer than getting into a school system. And just learning English so they can have jobs. And so we have teams that will help with transportation, teams that might help with tutoring, teams that donations of materials. It seems like there won't be any problem, but we have people who are willing to donate things. And we've talked about fundraising, and that's, gift cards and ways to, they're not going to be able to pay for their own rent after 3 months.
Right.
And how to help them. We've talked a lot about the initial setup, but that's going to go very quickly. And then we're going to have to, work in teams to support them in other ways. So there's a lot to be done.
There is
a lot.
And we have Don Detweiler is on this call, and he has been working with a family. I don't know, Don, if you want to say anything, but he's had a family since October 1st that he's been helping. And he answered in the chat about COVID. The family that I met in Concord right away showed me their COVID cards. They came in and the minute they landed in the airport, this family had Jensen, which is Johnson & Johnson. So it's 1 shot. So we won't be seeing, the children won't have their shots, but the parents will, from what I understand.
Yeah, so before the Afghan families arrive and settle in Massachusetts, they will have spent 6 to 8 weeks at various Air Force bases in the United States, where they received their COVID vaccine along with other vaccines, medical care, medical attention, like if you know they'd been injured at all, or if they were sick, any kind of nutritional needs that they needed. So yeah, so everyone who was evacuated and arrives here in the United States will receive or have already received the COVID vaccine.
And I think it's just so important, the work that IINE does, and just the way everything is set up to support, you know, the people that are coming in. I've always depended on IINE because I ran a smaller program, but I always knew they had the legal help for immigrants. They had, you know, the job training. So if there was anything that we needed as a smaller program, I would send people to Boston. That was the place to.
That is terrific. If you will both stay, as they say in the radio, on the line. And Eric, before we call on you, Don Detweiler, who is not related to Ingrid, Don Detweiler can tell us about what you've been doing. Don, would you do that, please? I think you're muted, but we'll get you unmuted. 2 seconds, not yet. Any second now. Nope, not.
I'm showing that he's not muted.
I am too, but we're still not hearing him. So, and we heard him earlier, which is puzzling. Don, while you're trying to figure that out on your end, let's turn to Eric Hamilton because he has a question. Eric.
Well, hello. Thank you for taking my question. Yeah, I'd like to just start out by saying this is my first. This is the first time I've heard of any of this kind of work, and I got to tell you, it's amazing work you guys are doing behind the scenes. I am really impressed with how much is going on. I've got my young son with me here. He's listening in as well and seeing what. Say hello.
Hello.
And seeing what's going on with the evacuees coming into the country and how well they're being taken care of. So you're an inspiration to me, him. Thank you very much for all that work that you're doing, honestly. My questions are, I'll ask this one up front. When donations are made, and I know this is not what the program is about, but there's, like you said, there's 70 people on the line, and maybe there's some folks that this might be a deciding factor for them. When donations are made, is that a tax deductible donation?
It is.
That's good. And are there any efforts to reconnect the families that are coming here, the folks that are coming here, with people they might know already here in America, folks that they might have worked with before while they were over there? Interpreters worked with soldiers. Some of the folks in the agencies might have worked with other Americans that are back. Are there any efforts to do that?
There are. That's a great question. In fact, the folks, the friends that come over here, and generally speaking, and this is across the board for all refugees, not just Afghan refugees, but the priority usually rests with people who already have a connection here. So with the Afghan families, it's a special circumstance because it's an emergency situation. It was an emergency evacuation. And often because of that, because it was, it happened suddenly, it was an emergency. There aren't always family or friend connections here, but generally speaking, the folks that arrive here first are generally people who already had a family member who immigrated here or have a friend who already lives here. So yes, yeah, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, and that's how city or regions of the United States, cities in the United States are chosen for people because it's based on if they have a relative or a friend that's already here.
Gotcha. And are there efforts to connect them with each other while they're here?
There is. So it's hard. I mean, COVID, it's just, it makes it more difficult for people to connect in person, although because of the fact that they're vaccinated, that makes it easier. But yeah, there's a huge Afghan refugee population in Lowell. There is in Boston, same in Manchester. Actually, one of the employees at IINE is a former Afghan refugee, now an American citizen, who works with the Afghan families to find other Afghan families. Often we try to find apartment complexes that rather than just like individual apartments, like we try to find landlords who own complexes that have apartments where many different families can stay in each apartment. So yeah, I mean it's critical that people have that support from other people in their circumstances.
That's terrific. Eric, thank you for your good question.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank your son for joining us.
Yeah.
Don, have you figured out how to unmute yourself yet? No, you still. Oh, do you have the volume on your machine turned up? Did you check that?
Oh my gosh, I had this microphone that was off. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
That explains it.
It's amazing what can happen.
Yeah, well, like Sue was saying, I belong to a group of members of Temple Isaiah, and we're a huge congregation, 850 families. And so we got incredible support from our congregation in volunteers and donations and in-kind gifts. So our family came on October 11th. We were told about their arrival like a day and a half just before they came.
Wow.
So we had to kind of rush to get their apartment. We found an apartment through the generosity of one of our Temple members in West Somerville. It's going to be too expensive for this family. I know, Cynthia, you're thinking, oh my God, they'll never stay there. And they won't. They'll probably, God willing, find a nice place in Lowell or Worcester when their lease for this other apartment runs out. But in any case, we have our Temple, really providing to supplement that rent for them. That shouldn't be a real problem. Anyway, the family came, and we thought nobody spoke any English at all. And the father, turns out, knew a lot of English. He just was too shy to speak it because he's been working with the U.S. soldiers for 10 years. Right. And so you're going to pick up some stuff, but English. And so it's working out really nice. He's gaining a lot of confidence in our team and sharing his life with us as well as he can. But we do rely on translators quite a bit to communicate the more complicated, detailed elements that need to be discussed. Like, for instance, you're never going to be able to afford to stay here. The difficult conversations about the vaccinations. Yeah, they came with cards for one shot, and a week and a half later, we were able to give them their second shot. And we just got them to the whole family. It's a family of 7 with 5 kids. We just got the whole family to Cambridge Health Alliance to meet their physician. Incidentally, they got their what is it called? The refugee health assessment in the camp, by the way. So we didn't have to worry about getting that. Cynthia would be interested in this, probably nobody else. But anyway, when we took the family there, it turns out none of the kids had any shots, any of the early childhood shots that every one of our children in America get. Rubella, measles, mumps, whatever, all those things. So they got the whole gamut of shots, polio, the whole thing. And I won't go into anti-vax propaganda right now. But anyway,
okay.
Nobody cried. None of the kids cried except the baby, but that was understandable. So anyway, it was so uplifting for our community to be doing this. As Jews, we were strangers in a strange land, and it really comes close to our heart to be able to be working with these refugees. So And it's really uplifted a great number of people in our congregation. So I hope many of you on the call are able to mobilize and organize groups of your own because like Cynthia was saying, there's going to be a lot of parolees coming through the next few weeks. I was on a State Department webinar, was it yesterday or the day before? And they were saying there's still something like 55,000 parolees that are going to be resettled in this country. And they're hoping to get, I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 a week, every week, finding communities until April or May. So
well, we clearly have our collective work ahead of us, don't we, Don?
Right.
Thank you. That's an inspiring addition to what we're doing. And I know people can try to get in touch with you through the synagogue if they want to help in some way.
Sure.
The way we're doing this is that Ingrid is competently managing the chat box. So Ingrid, can you forward a question that might be in the chat box for us?
Actually, two things quickly. Someone has asked if the slides will be available from your program, Cynthia.
Oh, sure. I can send them to you. Absolutely.
We could also, Cynthia, Julie, we can probably put them on the league website, correct? Yes. Okay, so
Yep.
we will do that. We'll put it on
Sure.
the
I can
league
send it to you.
together with the recording of this program.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Someone has asked about the timing of the arrival of the evacuees. How long is this going to take? The next 6 months, a year?
Yeah, it's going to be that we're going to receive up to about 500 people over the next year. And we, like Don was saying, we often don't find out that a family is arriving until the very day they arrive. It's unpredictable. So yeah, and sometimes it's a family of 7. Sometimes it's a single person. It's different family sizes at different times, and we often don't know until the last minute.
A lot of work ahead, isn't there? Thank you, Ingrid. Well, the next person whose hand is raised is Vivian Bertolt. Hello, Vivian.
Hi, I am so excited at the same time, very emotional about this conversation. First generation immigrant here. Many of the things that Cynthia was talking about are things that I struggled with when I moved to the United States. So when I see a group of people like in this Zoom working to help immigrants integrate, it is very special. One of the things that I wanted to add as we're trying to help these people based on my experience would be to help with healthcare. Because one of the challenges that I had when I had just moved here, there is a whole long process with paperwork. And before that paperwork is in place, people can get sick. Now, if you have young families with children, sickness doesn't give you a warning. It just happens. So, and then in my case, I got an emergency as a woman, so there was maternal or female healthcare needs. So, and I didn't have coverage, and many of and that's just one example, but what happens when an immigrant gets sick and they're afraid of the bill is they'll be quiet and be in pain. My mother does that sometimes. When she had just moved here, she didn't have coverage for her, and she wouldn't tell me. And so, and by the time we got help, it was, a lot of, so as we're working on fundraising, perhaps we could focus also on giving these people, at least basic healthcare coverage for a prolonged period of time, maybe 6 months, so that they don't have to worry about, they don't have to be afraid to mention that they're hurting or are in pain. And the other thing was maybe perhaps thinking through how to manage language nuances. As much as we speak English, it's when we're immigrants, the English is different. And so the interpretation of things is different. And so that is something to be cognizant of as we help other immigrants,
Mhm.
because we have, as United States, our interpretation of words could mean something that is offensive to another culture, and likewise. So I don't know if Cynthia, you have a program that just helps describe certain words, and I would be happy to, if you have such a video that just is educative of words that when you say this, it means this in the United States, you get in trouble, don't say it.
Well,
And
that's such a good point. Not just words, but hand gestures.
exactly. And also, I remember I recognized.
I love it.
Yeah. Different hand gestures mean different things around the world.
Exactly. So I remember I recognized that sometime early this year, and I created a short video to say, welcome to, maybe the town of Acton. But when somebody when you say good morning to someone and they don't respond, don't be offended, because this is the New England way. They'll just look at you. So things like that, so that they don't feel that they are not welcome. But they understand that this is the New England culture, that they don't hate you, they just don't say good morning back, or they won't look you in the eyes. Something.
I have to say, I'm from Indiana, and that rings a little true. Even
It does.
I used to live. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa, and when you encounter someone, you always greet. And if there's no greeting, it's considered extremely rude. I mean, you have to go through the whole thing. How's your wife? How's your husband? How's your kids? How are the goats? How are the cows? I mean, like, how's everyone? And that's just what you do. And if it's considered very rude. And so, that cultural, orientation of what is normal in terms of greeting, saying goodbye, all of that. Yeah.
There's so much to learn, isn't there? Thank you, Vivian, so much. Ingrid, do we have another question in the chat box?
We do. Elizabeth, who is heading up a local North Shore group that helps local refugees, has asked if there's an organization that provides laptops or bicycles that you know of.
IINE provides laptops. It's interesting. We just had someone join our leadership council who started a nonprofit organization where they connect people with used bikes and teach people how to take these used bikes and make them new and beautiful again. That's a great question. I'll ask him if that's something that he does, and I'll ask our CEO if bicycles are something that we provide, and if we don't, it's a great idea. And we have someone on our leadership council that is very passionate about bicycles. So
Susan,
bicycles. There's a place in Lowell. There's a nonprofit in Lowell.
Is it called Bike Connector?
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Wade. So this man named Wade Rubenstein. Yeah, he just joined our leadership council, and I'll talk to him. That's a great question. I don't know for sure, but if we don't do it, we should, because it's a wonderful idea.
Susan, is that Concordian, did you say?
Yes, he's a member of Kerem Shalom, and yes.
Yeah. Great guy.
And he donated bikes to the families that I've supported from LexRap. He brought the bikes to the kids, showed them how to ride them. It's great.
Fantastic. Would you mind just telling us, Susan, what LexRap is for those people?
I should let Don talk about that. Lexington Refugee Assistance Program. And Don is one of the founders. Is that correct, Don? Right. And it's a group of volunteers that help family in family units. So this team idea of working with families has they've been doing it for quite a while.
Thank you so much. Louise Axon, you have a question. You patiently waited.
That's all right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're doing great.
Okay, great. It really wasn't a question. It was just putting in a plug, because earlier today I went to a 2-hour session on learning about Afghan
Very good.
culture for IN, also run by INE.
Mhm.
You might be able to say more about this, but there was an excellent Afghan expert who has taught people in the State Department and elsewhere, and she went through great overview of what these people's life is likely to be like. One of the things I hadn't fully appreciated is it sounds like more of the people are coming from rural areas than necessarily urban
Right.
areas.
Yeah.
A big difference in terms of the culture and gender roles, and it very much related to some of the things Vivian was talking about of things to do and not to do. That I wouldn't have known if I hadn't attended it. So I don't know, Cynthia, if there's a way to get that out, or I could forward the invite I had to it, but I know they taped it. It was,
And it will
Yeah,
be
and
on
there's
the feed.
more. There are more of those orientation sessions coming up, so I can forward those to y'all. Yeah,
They're on the IINE
it's a
website.
great webinar to attend. Yeah.
was terrific.
Well,
Great.
we'll try to advertise that on our league site.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you so
I
much.
think that would be it'd be very helpful for everyone who wants to know more. Yeah.
For those of you who are readers, of course, there are many pieces of fiction that have been written about that have explained, the process of coming to this country. But there's a book that was written a while ago by Anne Fadiman called "The Spirit Catches You and it Falls Down, and You Fall Down." It is a beautiful rendering of what it was like to bring folks from Vietnam and Cambodia into this country after the war. So you can see it's a while ago, but it's not dated at all in terms of the sensibility it creates and imbues in one's soul about the challenges that immigrant families face and what kinds of things we can do. So I would recommend Anne Fadiman's "The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down." Is there, Ingrid, do we have another question?
Actually, we have a comment and helpful suggestions. Jen, who is from Maynard, they have an evacuee who moved in with them about a week ago. And he would be very happy to help with translation. He's fluent in English, Pashto, and Dari. And they're in Maynard. So maybe we should help connect them to Susan in Concord.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, with First Parish, with Jane. Yes, definitely. I'm sure we will appreciate having him nearby. Yeah.
And could you say his name again for us, Ingrid? And if he's on the call, could he?
she is on the call. Jen, why don't you, Jen, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pronounce your last name correctly. Could she be unmuted? Or does she need to be unmuted?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
There she
This
is.
is like my second Zoom meeting in my life, so sorry if
You're
it's
doing
weird.
beautifully. No.
So, my husband worked in Afghanistan for about 5 years, and we've taken in an evacuee who was a friend of his in Afghanistan. And we've been trying to find resources to help because he was at Fort McCoy for 2 months and he left before he got all his documentation. So we connected through, I believe it's Tricon in Concord, and with Leslie. I can't think of her last name now because I'm exhausted. And
Leslie Eccles.
Yes. And so she connected us with someone at IINE. So we're moving with that. But he speaks very good English. He speaks Pashto and Dari. And he said he would be happy to help translate for any families that need it. And I think he's also like wanting to do something because I think he's kind of bored. Yeah. So, and you know, it's been kind of an experience, let's put it that way. having him in our house. But anyway,
But
so
Jen,
if,
thank you so much. And we can contact, we'll make sure, would you take the initiative to contact Susan Biskin or Ingrid, or even, or Don, or Leslie?
I can get in touch with
Exactly.
Leslie, probably.
Terrific.
all right, so
Leslie was in the group that we met different congregations to talk.
Terrific.
But I can write
Right.
my email too.
yeah, and he's a great guy. Like, he's so great. We had an interview with Leslie on Monday. So I think she's already spoken to some of the people from Tricon about having him come do a talk and things like that.
Well, that's exciting. And that's thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for you and your husband. And
Well,
I think this connection is going to be a terrific one. Thank you so much.
yeah, okay. I know Sidar would be happy to help, and we'd be happy to have him like have something to do. Because
Well, thank you. We like to rake
We're
our
all
leaves.
just-
No, that's a joke. Ingrid, Ingrid.
we're all just really, really tired right now because it's been an adventure. Let's put it that way.
Well, we're
But
grateful
anyway.
for what you're doing. Ingrid, is there another question? We don't have a hand raised.
Okay.
Well, again, from the North Shore, asking if IINE is the same kind of organization as the Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Center in Roxbury and Worcester.
Yes, it is. It's a larger organization, but there are lots of different organizations like IINE around the state and the country. There's another one called Pathways in Lynn. I don't know if you're familiar, any of you are familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and we've also talked with people at Accentria, which is working in the Worcester area.
Yep.
Terrific. Well, we can take one more question. We've gone over our time frame, but it's been such a vigorous conversation, such a helpful one. So is there one more question, Ingrid? I don't see a hand raised.
No, but I could ask the question that one of the things that our faith groups have been sort of grappling with is what's the best way to channel donations and who to get it to or who to give it to. In particular, household goods in Acton is one of the resources for furnishing these apartments. And we have, at least Tricon has asked people who would like to make furniture donations to actually just take them directly to household goods. So any suggestions about how that would work and what kind of clothing, a little more specific information that would help them to feel more culturally settled in these places.
Yeah. So if to make a monetary donation, you can go to iine.org/donate. To volunteer, which includes donating in kind, iine.org/volunteer. We're accepting donations of warm clothing. We appreciate it if it's new, of course, but it can be just like also gently worn. One of a great donation to make is the donation of a gift card, because then we can give the gift cards to the families and then they can go to the store and buy what they need. So like gift cards for Target or Walmart, Stop and Shop, places like that. The gift cards are really appreciated.
That's a wonderful suggestion. I hope that we'll try to write up some of these wonderful suggestions and put them on our website. So as a kind of summary of all the good work that everybody's doing, and let people know the ways in which they can be helpful and the things they can do. I want to thank you so much, Cynthia and Susan and Don and I mean, and Ingrid and Julie and who's in the background back there managing things in court, and Peggy who's recording. And again, a thank you to Nancy Cronin, Stefan Bader, and to Nancy Brown in California for the good work they've done to pull all of this together. The League will do everything we can to be supportive and helpful and to forward information to everyone, both in our community and within the League, but more importantly, within the broader Concord community as well. So Cynthia, thank you for all you're doing, for what all that your organization is doing. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Goodbye.